India's major foreign policy priority in the new year will be China. Note that Vijay Gokhale, who will succeed S. Jaishankar as Foreign Secretary at the end of this month, is an old China hand, a Mandarin speaker who is also ambassador to China. Jaishankar was a China hand. Earlier, Shiv Shankar Menon and Nirupama Rao were also China hands. The diplomatic engagement with China will continue despite pinpricks on the border. In fact, author and journalist Bertil Littner believes that China has no interest in resolving the border dispute, seeing it as useful leverage against India. China will press India on the Belt and Road Initiative, hoping to get the country and its 1 billion plus market on board. At the same time, they will exert pressure on India's periphery. China will step up efforts to displace India in Nepal. It will seek to undermine the India-Bhutan relationship. China has offered to invest billions of dollars in Bangladesh and has already scored major gains in the Maldives and Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Indian Prime Minister and China's President Xi Jinping will continue to meet at various fora, but there will be little give and take from President Xi. So don't expect any improvement in India's $50 billion trade deficit with China. All in all, China sees India as a rival in the Asian strategic space and will use every weapon in its armory to undercut this country and confine it to the South Asian box. Joining me on the broadcast right now for the WION newsroom is WION senior editor Surya Gangadharan. Surya, good evening. How do we read this latest intrusion by China in Arunachal Pradesh, especially in the post-Doklam era?
Well, there may be a tendency to overreact to what the Chinese are doing. For all we know, this is a local level official who decided that he was going to extend the road and perhaps didn't realize that he had crossed the line of actual control and entered India. It could well be something else because the Chinese will be constantly testing India's defenses along the line of actual control. And it could be through a road laying team, it could be through an intrusion, it could be through some other means. So this is something we have to be prepared for and be alert.
Surya, can I ask you also, we're hearing about Mr. Jaishankar's replacement. He's an old China hand, he's a Mandarin speaker, and as have many other people in that same role been previously. Does this indicate in some ways that India wants to continue with that policy of managing China in terms of these intrusions, knowing full well that they're not going to come to an end and perhaps that there's no real resolution on the cards at all?
I think if you look back, Aisha, in the 70s and 80s, the Foreign Office tended to be dominated by Russian speakers because Russia was a key ally of India. And in that sense, Russian foreign policy and its defense policies impacted India. And in that sense, we needed specialists who could deal with Russia. Today, you see China assuming that kind of profile in the Indian Foreign Ministry. And it explains why you have so many foreign secretaries who are China specialists and speak Mandarin, who have served in China, understand the Chinese thinking and the Chinese way of going about things. It's important for us to understand what the Chinese are doing because it's so crucial to us for our borders, for our security, for our own economic development. And unless we get a handle on how China is doing and are able to counter them, we'll be constantly on the defensive.
Surya, also, is China's relationship with Pakistan a point of concern for India as well? And of course, the way things are behaving when it comes to the US-Pakistan relationship, the fear is that China is going to step in where the US leaves a vacuum.
I seriously doubt if the US, the point here is that Pakistan needs the US. Pakistan has limited exports, textiles, a few other items, and they need those markets in the US and Europe. And for that reason, they are dependent on the US. Also, they need the US for their loans, for the soft loans that they take. Their balance of payments deficit is precarious. Their foreign exchange reserves are precarious. Their economy is going down. The Chinese don't really offer that kind of help that the Americans and the Western world can. So in that sense, I'd be very doubtful if China can actually take that kind of position in Pakistan, which the US presently has.